Well, hello everybody. I'm so excited to do clay with you guys. So you all are going to be making a animal pinch pot, okay? So it can be any animal that you want. So start thinking about it. Please don't shout it out loud. But start thinking about what animal that you want to make. And I made a pig. Obviously a pig doesn't really have bald kind of feet, but you could make it more cartoony, okay? So it doesn't have to necessarily look realistic. All right, let me set that down and let me sit down so I can get started here. So you're gonna get a piece of clay that's wrapped in a damp cloth, unwrap it, do not poke it, and then smooth it over because then you're going to create air bubbles. And remember, air bubbles in clay are bad because air, as it gets hotter and hotter and hotter, it expands. So when you have it in the kiln, remember the kiln is my big clay oven. When you have it in there and it's expanding, it's going to be trapped in there and it's going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger until all of a sudden it bursts and the air needs to get out of there. And so it breaks your project into like a million little pieces. So no air bubbles, just follow directions today and listen carefully, okay? So you have your piece of clay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to carefully just start to squish it into a ball, okay? So I've got it into this kind of a ball here, but it doesn't look very good. So then at this point, start to roll it in between your palms like this, okay? And now you don't want to overdo it. Once you feel like you've gotten it into a pretty good sphere, stop, okay? You could just set it down on your mat because the moisture in the clay gets taken out in your hands, and so your clay will start to dry out and get cracked. So when you've got it, you got it. You don't have to keep going. Then pick up your clay, and we're gonna start to make this into the pinch pot. We need the base of our animal, okay? So this hand, your hand that you don't like to write with, will support the clay. Then the hand that you write with, you're gonna take your thumb and you're gonna push it into the clay. It's kind of hard, you gotta use your muscles. But don't push all the way through. You wanna stop when this hand can kind of feel the tip of the thumb getting close, like my fingernail in there. I can kind of feel it getting close. So then stop. You want to make the walls of your pinch pot, like this one, about as thick as your finger, okay? So here begins the pinch pot. It's called a pinch pot because I use my fingers like this to pinch as I go around and around and around. So you're gonna start from the bottom of your pinch pot. This part is very important to follow directions or the walls of your pinch pot will get too thin and start to crumble. So put your thumb all the way to the bottom of the pinch pot so that your nail is actually hitting the bottom. Support the pinch pot with your other hand and you're gonna start to pinch and turn, but we're only pinching this bottom portion of the pinch pot. So I'm pinching and turning very gently. Sometimes I have to pinch and turn 5 times to get the walls to be about as thick as my finger. And sometimes I have to pinch only 3 times around and then it's right. Okay, don't pinch it too thin. Then take your thumb out, okay? Then you're gonna start to work on the middle portion of the pinch pot. So I'm gonna not have my fingernail touching the bottom anymore. I'm gonna pull it out slightly and now I'm gonna support with this hand still and I'm gonna do the middle of the pinch pot. Pinching and turning, pinching and turning. Then I'm going to do the top portion of this pinch pot. So I pull my thumb out a little bit more and I'm going to pinch and turn and pinch and turn. And now I'm working on the top. And I don't want to over pinch. I'm going to stop because the walls of this pinch pot look to be about as thick as my finger. So I'm going to stop right there. Now if you have any cracks, you can use your fingers to smooth them out. If you have really dry looking clay, kind of like, I don't know if you guys can see it, right there, it looks pretty dry. I have spray bottles, just give them a light spray, not too much. You don't want this thing to get soaked and then your clay starts to turn into mush and fall apart. So now I've got my pinch pot. Then we are going to use some extra clay to make the pieces of our animal. So there are rolling pins on the cart if you guys need to roll out your clay and make it flat to cut all of your pieces. I'm going to show you how I made this pig. All I'm going to do is take off some pieces. I'm going to try to make them all the same size. So these will be my, let's see, this will be my hands and my feet. Okay, so they look all about the same size. And then I'm going to do a bigger piece for my head. And then 2 little ears. Oh, and my snout. Okay, got it. So now I'm gonna have to do a lot of rolling, getting this as good as I can. And I'm gonna work pretty quickly here. So mine might not be too perfect. That will be my head. Another little ball. This will be, I'm gonna pinch it into a triangle. Okay, so I've got a triangle. And then I'm gonna do this one too. A lot of rolling for mine. And remember, if you need a rolling pin, go get it if you want to make your things flat. There's another ear. This will be my snout. So let's see, it's a little too big. Okay, so that will be my snout right there. I'll stick that on in a minute. Let me roll all of these. I'll go as quick as I can. Roll this one, and this one, and my last. Okay, and remember, you don't want to over roll because I'm trying not to dry these out, so I'm trying to do it quick. Okay, now let's talk about adding things to our pinch pot. Of course that's okay, but you can't just stick them on because they will fall off. As the clay starts to dry, these two pieces, this and this, will start to separate from each other. So we have to scratch the surface and we have to add some glue. In the clay world, we don't really use glue, we use slip. Slip is just clay and water mixed together, and it helps to create a uniform moisture surface so that it will stick. So now I have to scratch wherever I want things to stick. So if I want my snout to stick on my head, I have to scratch with a fork, just like that. And then I have to scratch where I'm going to put it. So it's gonna go right there. So I have to scratch that and that. I'm gonna scratch where I want my ears, and I have to scratch the actual ear. So you have to scratch your parts and where you're going to put it. I'm gonna do my feet. Let's see, I don't know if you can see this. One right there, one right there, one right there, one right there, and this will be my head. So I'm scratching that. I'm gonna scratch where I put my feet. This is actually called scoring. So when you use the fork to scratch like this, a lot of ceramic artists call this scoring. Now, let me add the glue. I've got to do the same thing. I have to add glue, or slip, okay, on to the actual part and the object. So both parts get glue. It's not like paper where you only add glue onto one piece of paper and then you stick it to the other. Both things have to have the glue or the slip on them, if that makes sense. I hope that clears it up a little bit. Okay, so now I'm gonna start with my head. And push on there, make it stick. Use your muscles, okay? If you don't push it on there nice and, firm, then it could pop off, okay? It's gonna be slimy, don't worry about it. You'll wash your hands later. This will be a foot here, stick that on, another foot, and I'm pushing pretty hard. I don't wanna ruin my little pig and all its little parts, but I do want these to stick. When it comes out of the kiln, I don't wanna have 3 feet and only you know, one ear. I want all my parts. So now I'm going to stick that on there. Okay, and now what I recommend doing is using your finger, or you can go get a wooden tool to smooth the part, the joint, where these two parts meet. You want to smooth them together just a little bit so that it really kind of makes that connection. Oops, sorry. Let me move over. So it makes that connection a little bit stronger. So I'm just using my nail, if you guys can see. I'm just using my nail. I don't really have long nails or anything, but I'm just doing the best I can to kind of smooth together those parts. Okay, now mine doesn't look very smooth yet. You can use your finger. This is the time, once you have everything kind of built at the end, use your finger, maybe a little bit of water if you need to, and smooth your surface. So get it to look exactly the way you want it to look when it comes out of the kiln. The kiln just cooks your clay. It doesn't change it in any way. It's not going to magically take out all of the cracks or smooth anything. It will look exactly the way it looks today, except white like mine, okay? And it will be hard as glass. All right, so now I have these little wooden tools. They're up on the cart. They're in a little bowl. This is what I'm gonna use to poke my eye in there. I'm also gonna poke my nostrils for my nose. If I wanna add any details like the little feet, I can do that. And there's one more thing that's really important to add. Like if you had fur and you wanted to add texture, you could draw it with this tool. It would work great. The thing that you cannot forget, this happens every year, somebody forgets to write their name on it. You have to use this tool and very carefully, don't wait till there's only 10 seconds left of class, because this part is very important. Make sure your name is on there. So I've got Mrs. Constein on the bottom. That way, when it comes out of the kiln, I will know it's mine, because you'd be surprised. A lot of kids can't remember what they made or what theirs looks like. Or some people make two things and, well, one person makes one and another person makes one and they look similar. Then they're upset because they don't know whose is whose. Okay, so make sure the name is on there, super important. This will go on the cart, and find the shelf with your teacher's name and make sure you put it on that shelf. Okay, we have a lot of classes at Parkview and we don't want to get them mixed up. All right, so this will just sit and dry for a couple days, and then I will bake it in the kiln and you'll see it next art class. So good luck, have fun. I can't wait to see what animals you all create.